In Argentina, people go to the polls on Sunday to define the presidency of the country between candidates Sergio Massa and Javier Milei. The winner will take office next December 10th for a fourth-year term in office. In Venezuela, the electoral drill takes place on Sunday in preparation for the upcoming December 3rd referendum on the Essequibo dispute with Guyana. In Palestine, the health ministry warned that the Israeli aggression has killed more than 12,000 Palestinians since October 7th. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, people go to the polls on Sunday to define the presidency of the country between candidates Sergio Massa and Javier Milei. The winner will take office next December 10th for a four-year term in office. So far, the elections are going normally, according to some local media. 60% of the voters have already cast their votes, and their participation exceeds that of the general elections. With a dispute at the polls of two antagonistic projects of the country, this second round of elections will conclude the process through which the citizens will decide who will replace Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Kirchner in the government for the period 2023-2027, that is the renewal of the position of the executive power, president and vice president. The road to this process began last August with the open, simultaneous and compulsory primaries and continued on October 22nd with the presidential elections. The Minister of Economy and presidential candidate of Union for the Homeland, Sergio Massa, boarded this afternoon in the city of Tigre in the province of Buenos Aires and assured that we are beginning a new stage in Argentina that requires dialogue and consensus. The presidential candidate of Union for the Homeland, Sergio Massa, said that this was a turning point for the country 40 years after the re-establishment of democracy. He also invited Argentines to spend this day in reflection. He added that this is an extremely important election that will determine the country we will be in for the next 4 years, and for this reason we want it to be carried out with responsibility, serenity and moderation. The candidate said he would arrive at the bunker of the Art Media Complex around 5:30 p.m. local time. Then they will have to set priorities for the coming days. Let's wait for the results with serenity, hope and optimism that the future of Argentina will find us better and more united, he concluded.
It is a very important day, but beyond whether it is important for me or not, I think it is very important for Argentines. In a way, it seems to me that the most important thing is that it is important for Argentines. With this dynamic and in this sense, we have to think towards regional integration, towards the future of Argentina's relations with the world, towards what model of country we are going to have in terms of values, in terms of democratic coexistence. Well, that is why it is very important.
The president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, went to exercise his right to vote this morning. During the moment, the president exchanged with the public present and offered some brief statements calling Argentinians to go to the polls. He also expressed that the biggest winner will be democracy. Alberto Fernandez concludes his mandate and will hand over the office to one of the two candidates running for the presidency. The candidate for president of Argentina for the party Liberty Advances, Javier Milei, cast his right to vote at the headquarters of the National Technological University in the Porteño neighborhood of Almagro. When asked about a possible result, he expressed that he hopes that the numbers will be so clear that tonight we will have a new president-elect. We go live now with political scientist and professor at the University of Buenos Aires, Julio Burman, to go deeper in the analysis of today's paramount election. Hello, Julio. Welcome to From the South.
Hi, hello.
Hi, thank you for your time. Professor, the first questions, we are here in the final hours of the election day. How would you describe today's polls? How have they unfolded so far?
Well, we don't know the results. We expect a tight election because the country divided in two big blocks. On the one hand, we have the governmental bloc with the candidate Sergio Massa, who happens to be the economy minister. And on the other hand, we have Javier Milei, a conservative, far-right candidate, with an alliance with Mauricio Macri, the former president, who is center-right. And I think that they too have good reasons to believe that they achieved a very competitive alliance, given that in the primaries, Milei got 30%, and the party of Mauricio Macri, got 23%. Of course, politics is not mathematics. This doesn't mean that these two blocs are going to join like an arithmetic calculus, but Sergio Massa, who was number one in the general election, now is confronting a bigger bloc on the opposition side.
So, Professor, Argentina is deciding today between two opposite sides of a coin. On one side we have Javier Milei, and on the other Sergio Massa, as you were saying, two completely different government plans. What do each bring to the table if elected? And in your opinion, what does Argentina needs the most in its current context, like the debt with the IMF and the rising inflation?
Well, they are different, but I think that, for instance, in terms of foreign policy, Milei is closer to the Republican Party, and he identifies himself with Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro from Brazil. On the other hand, I think that Sergio Massa, who also claims for closer to the U.S. foreign policy, but he's more, he identifies with the Democratic Party of the U.S., but both candidates are going to turn Argentina closer to Washington. In terms of economic policy, of course, Javier Milei is a radical pro-marketeer, but Sergio Massa is a moderate. Even though he's now the Ministry of Economy of the current government of Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Kirchner, Massa also says that if he achieves the presidency, he's going to turn the economy to a more pro-marketplace. So I think that no matter who wins, Argentina is going to turn more to the center or the center-right, let's say. But of course, with two different velocities, right, or speeds, because there is no doubt that Javier Milei is a more radical, conservative pro-market candidate.
Professor, one question also. In your opinion, how do you see these elections turning out? Who do you believe might be the winner or on December 10 will be swearing in as president?
It's so difficult to make a forecast. The polls, the surveys have been saying until the last week that they were almost in a 50-50 outcome. Some polls, some surveys were giving Milei a small difference in favor, of course, but they were not decisive or no. My intuition is that Sergio Massa is a more professional candidate, and he demonstrated a more, let's say, focused discourse and a more professional campaign. But on the other hand, the truth is that the economy of Argentina is going through big problems. Inflation is too high. We are almost in a 200% year inflation. Satisfaction with the economic situation is quite low in Argentina. So the logic says that any opposition candidate is playing with an advantage. I'm not sure about a more accurate forecast than that one, but let's say that any opposition candidate, today is Javier Milei, the one who is leading the opposition, but any opposition candidate is closer to win in Argentina.
Professor, one last question. As you were saying, currently in Argentina, the country is very divided in two blocks. So whoever wins will have to rule over that divided country. How would that go? How difficult would it be to run the government, whoever is elected today?
I think in terms of governability, as you were saying, Sergio Massa, the government candidate, has a more solid prospect because he's going to have, if he wins, bigger legislative blocks and more support in territorial governments. While Javier Milei is an open question in terms of governability because he comes from a very, very new party with almost no legislative blocks and no, not almost, and with no territorial government on his side. So in terms of the future of governance and governability, there is no doubt that Sergio Massa is more prepared.
Thank you, Professor, for your time here from the South. It's a pleasure to have you with us here today and to share your opinions on the matter.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Let's continue now with other news. In Venezuela, the electoral drill takes place on Sunday in preparation for the upcoming December 3rd referendum on the Essequibo in dispute with Guyana. The National Electoral Council activated a total of 800 voting centers throughout the country for the electoral simulation of this November 19th, where the people of Venezuela ratified their legitimate rights over the territory of the Essequibo. According to the words of the national head of the Venezuela Toda Campaign Command, Jorge Rodriguez, Venezuelans can go to any voting center to familiarize themselves, cast their vote, and check the speed and efficiency of the Venezuelan automated electoral system. Elvis Amoroso, president of the National Electoral Council, announced that they will extend the drill to make it easier for all voters to exercise their vote. In Cuba, the fourth conference, The Nation and Immigration, will conclude on Sunday at the Havana Convention Palace after 2 days of dialogues between the island's authorities and their compatriots abroad. According to the Deputy Director General of Consular Affairs and Attention to Cubans Living Abroad of the Foreign Ministry, Laura Pujol, the meeting gathered in the Cuban capital 361 Cubans living in 54 countries, a third of them from the United States, for a dialogue that she described as fruitful and fluid. On Saturday, President Miguel Díaz-Canel attended the opening ceremony in which Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez affirmed that the meeting is an unequivocal sign of continuous and irreversible strengthening of the ties between Cuba and its nationals living abroad. Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The Palestinian Health Ministry warned that the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank has killed more than 12,000 Palestinians since October 7th. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the number of people killed by the Israeli siege on Gaza has risen to 12,415 Palestinians, including 5,000 children, 3,250 women, and 690 elderly people. Meanwhile, the number of wounded reached 32,500. The Health Institute warned that the Israeli occupation forces have forcibly evacuated Al-Shifa Hospital, one of the largest in Gaza, forcing the wounded and refugees to walk to other health centers, many of which do not have the capacity to receive more people. In Gaza, Palestinian citizens denounced the use of internationally banned weapons by the Israeli occupation forces against the civilian population.
During the whole night, they threw bombs at us. All the houses were burned. They threw leaflets to move to the south. The way was very difficult. All of the people left together, the adults with the children and the elderly. We could not protect ourselves because there was neither civil defense nor rescue teams. The houses were burning and the people themselves had to put out the fire. Everything was very difficult. We left at 8:30 in the morning. We kept walking until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We all fled with our women, young people, children, old people, my mother, and my in-laws all at once. Everything is misery and humiliation. The Jews stopped us there and detained us for about 4 hours. People were punishing us. My son fainted and fell down. My daughter could not breathe.
That also happened to my wife. She could not breathe. This is not life. Until now, we don't know where to go for real. We don't know what to do. Look at them. Here they are. Walk around and look at them. There, there are more than 25 people here. This is my family group. This is my daughter, and she is wounded by the bombing. This is the little one. Came here, daughter. See how she is walking. Look how my daughter is walking. It is a humiliation. My daughter has 30 days that she can't use her leg. Now she is limping. She is a child. We are living in misery for God's sake. Look at us. Do you think this is fair that we are like this? We are citizens. They gave us flyers. We took refugee in the school. They gave us a small pocket of rice for every 8 people. I swear to God, for 20 people they gave us 2 trays.
President of Palestine Mahmoud Abbas requested on Saturday U.S. President Joe Biden to interfere with the war in Gaza.
President Biden, I urge you on all your official and humanitarian traits to stop this catastrophe, or rather this genocide against our innocent people, and to make our people besieged in Gaza breathe a sigh of relief. This war must be stopped immediately. How can this genocide be justified as self-defense? Actually, these are war crimes deserving.
Foreign Minister Ivan Hill reaffirmed Venezuela strongly condemns the bloody massacre conducted by Israel at the UNRWA Fakura school in northern Gaza. The government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela categorically expresses its rejection and absolute condemnation of the massacre perpetrated by the Israeli Zionism in the UNRWA Fakura school located in the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip on Saturday morning, November 18, 2023, which left over 200 deaths, mostly children. Venezuela joins the request made by South Africa, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Comoros, and Djibouti to the International Court of Justice to investigate the Israeli aggression toward Gaza, characterized by war crimes and genocide perpetrated by the Zionist tyranny of Israel. We reiterate our appeal to the international community and to the conscience of all humanity to join efforts and continue with actions leading to an end of the indiscriminate slaughter of women, children, and the elderly committed by the occupying power of Israel to the brotherly Palestinian people. Health Minister Maya Al-Kaila said on Sunday that the Israeli occupation is committing a genocide against the entire healthcare system in the Gaza Strip, including hospitals, medical doctors, and patients. Speaking at a press conference, Al-Kaila called on the United Nations, international health organizations, and the International Committee of the Red Cross to exert pressure on Israel to allow the transport of the remaining children and patients from Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza to hospitals in the West Bank or Egypt. She highlighted that no hospital in Gaza has the capacity to accommodate the massive number of wounded on the non-stop Israeli bombardment. The minister questioned Israel's rationale behind preventing the entry of medicines and depriving patients of their right to receive treatment. Al-Qaeda called for an immediate cessation of the Israeli genocide in Gaza and the West Bank, demanding a halt to the targeting, shelling, and blockade of medical and healthcare facilities. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In the Dominican Republic, death toll rises to 9 after heavy rains. There are 5 women and 4 men who were traveling in the crushed vehicles and whose recovery has taken about 7 hours. Most deaths were caused following the collapse of a section of an overpass that fell on a set of vehicles traveling on the infrastructure. Emergency services are still working at the site as it is feared that there may be further victims. After the incident, Director of the Emergency Operations Center, Juan Manuel Mendez, reaffirmed on Saturday evening the alert levels in the Dominican Republic due to the weather storm affecting the country. Southern Iceland remains on alert for intense volcanic activity. The Icelandic government released a video showing the destruction of roads and buildings caused by the volcano under the Reykjanes Peninsula. The phenomenon caused a jagged crack running through the community, pushing the ground upwards a meter or more in some places. The Meteorological Office said there is a significant probability of an eruption somewhere along the magma tunnel, whose main location is an area north of Grandavik, near the Hagafell mountain. In view of the situation, the authorities have tightened security measures. Many indigenous people living in urban areas in Brazil are invisible in the eyes of society. For this reason, they do not have access to public policies aimed at indigenous people and have many difficulties in obtaining their rights. There are also many prejudices against the population. It is said that indigenous people stop being indigenous when they live in cities. With more details, our correspondent Brian Mir brings us the following information.
On the peri-urban periphery of Greater Recife, a group of Carashuana-Sioux people have occupied a long-abandoned warehouse complex built on ancestral Holy Land and are demanding the government transform it into an indigenous reserve.
This location represents an ancestral recovery. Our spirits guide us here, and we only made it by overcoming a lot of pain and suffering. And the cities, there are not policies to support us, like housing, and nowhere we can practice our rituals.
At less than a year old, Marataro Caete, as the new village is called, is an example of the type of settlement that could face eviction if the Senate overrules a line veto by President Lula against a law that would require indigenous people to prove in court that their ancestors occupied any land before 1988 for it to be recognized as a reserve.
Any project to return land to indigenous people always leads to some new form of set. This new time requirement law, for example, has clearly been made to stop any new reserve from being designated.
The idea of placing the legal onus on indigenous people to prove land ownership history was declared unconstitutional by Brazil's Supreme Court earlier this year. As the agribusiness lobby tries to push through a new law that would do the same thing, leaders of Brazil's 1.7 million indigenous peoples promise to fight back.
We always resist because we are seeds, and we won't give up. We've been fighting for over 5 years, and we'll keep fighting forever.
Brian Mir, teleSUR.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. Before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.